I call him a jellyfish because a jellyfish, you can't pick it up. There's no spine to it, but it has long tentacles and it can sting you.
There's no part of my life that he hasn't ruined.
Every day you were beaten.
Every day in Florida, every day in Nebraska, every day in Rhode Island.
Every day, Nicholas.
I shoot every day.
I nearly died.
Nicholas Aliverdian, he's passed away from a long battle with cancer, leaving his wife and 2 children.
Nick's not dead. Nick wrote his own obituary.
I am not Nicholas Aliverdian.
Oh,
No, that's a low blow. That's a right low blow.
Oh. So I have to hold his full weight. Do you see?
He looks like an invalid in a wheelchair. He breathes through an oxygen mask. Prosecutors say it's all an act.
I can't breathe. I can't walk. People say that's an act. Let me try to stand up. Let me try to stand up. Exactly. Exactly.
36-year-old Nicholas Rossi even tried to speak with a fake English accent.
Objection, my lady. That is complete hearsay.
Sometimes he arrived to court in pajamas.
Fingerprints match. How can you possibly claim not to be Nicholas Rossi?
Rossi later claimed he had woken from a coma to find his arms had been tattooed.
They have DNA samples from you?
The name. Thank you for pointing that out.
A story so bizarre it felt like a film script.
I'm going to start dispensing my own form of justice.
That's what a plot twist sounds like in a courtroom.
Is the game up for you?
The game has just started. The game is afoot.
Hi guys, today, voice cracking already. I'm just recovering from an illness. Today I want to talk about a guy. Okay, he has many names. He was born Nicholas Aliverdian, then he became Nicholas Rossi. He has like 16 aliases and like 20 plus victims allegedly. And he goes currently by Arthur Knight. This case is unhinged. It's the thing about it is it's actually hilarious.
I'm sorry. I don't know what I could do about my eyebrows.
Except for the fact that what he did is actually really, really bad.
Convictions for sex offenses in Ohio and Utah.
He has no remorse. He's a monster.
If it wasn't for what he did, like this would be pure comedy. This is why I have this on. Because it is, if what he's saying is true, this is a grand conspiracy. The DNAs, something's happening with it, and they're out to get him and the government. For someone who's feeling under the weather, I'm very over the edge. This guy's own family, they refer to him as Demon Seed.
He was the devil's spawn.
And then there is this video that I found where he's leaving the courthouse and he's in a wheelchair and his wife is pushing him. And there's an oxygen mask that's also on the side of them. And some kind of altercation happens.
Please stop! Stop it!
In the course of this, she almost loses control of the wheelchair. This is so messed up. His oxygen mask gets disconnected, but he doesn't know that. So even when he's hooked up on oxygen, he's like, I can't, but he talks like that, right? Then there's this reporter that he has beef with, okay? And she's got a microphone in his face and she's like telling him and he's like yelling.
Your oxygen mask is not connected. Going into your mouth.
Would all of you like to see a video of this woman, Jane McSorley, assaulting and abusing me in my own home in front of Craig Johnson? I need oxygen. I can't breathe. No, I'm not on any oxygen.
Can you move your arm, please, so I can get to it?
This woman assaulted me in my own home. I have a video which I will provide for your evidence.
I did not assault you.
You did, and you insinuated that I was unfaithful to my wife with you. And it's all on video and audio recording. It's all on video and audio recording.
Let me just get into it. His parents, at the time that they got married, Jack was 10 years older than Diana, who was 21 at the time. And they're from Rhode Island. Jack and Diana, they fought a lot because Jack, he was kind of a deadbeat in the sense that he didn't work, he drank a lot, he would just yell at her and stuff. And she was the one who worked. After they got married, a few years later, she got pregnant with her first child, who is going to be born and named Nicholas Alaverdian. That's the guy we're talking about. Okay, he was born in 1987. After Nick was born, Jack, he didn't get much better. It's not like all of a sudden he was like, okay, I'm going to be like part of his life and take care of him. No, he was still a deadbeat. Couldn't hold down a job. So the mom was working all the time. She was waiting tables and they were not able to make ends meet. And so they moved around a lot and it was very turbulent when Nick was growing up. Despite all of this, Diana gets pregnant again in 1989 with Nicholas's brother, who is Joseph. When Joseph was just 6 months old, Diana filed for divorce. But the gag is, she was pregnant with her third child, a daughter. Her name was Deandra. And so now she is divorced. She has 3 kids and was already struggling, and now she's going to struggle even more. During this time after the divorce, Diana was keeping in touch with family members, even from Jack's side. But then when Nick was 7, everyone says she just like dropped off the face of the earth. Like they could not reach her. They didn't know where she was or anything. It turns out that at this time, Nick was having major behavioral problems, right? He's around 7 years old. He is basically like hitting his siblings, hitting his mom, getting in trouble in school, yelling and screaming. He's like unruly, all this stuff. This is around the time that she meets her second husband. Okay, his name is David Rossi. Remember earlier when I said Nicholas Alaverdian, aka Nicholas Rossi? Okay, that's where the Rossi comes from. This man's going to eventually be his stepfather. This guy, David Rossi, he's actually an impersonator of a singer who was popular at the time. This is in the 90s, whose name was Engelbert Humperdinck. What a name. When David Rossi was impersonating Engelbert Humperdinck at a bar that Diana waited tables at, she caught his eye. He thought she was beautiful. He went up to her and started talking to her. And she basically tells him, like, I'm not interested. I have these 3 kids and they're a handful. Like, I can't even take them anywhere. I can't even take them to the park. And so, like, I can't get into anything right now. My plate is full. But he's insisting and everything. And so she decides, okay, she starts dating him. But she won't let him meet her kids. And he's like, like, what do you mean you won't let me meet them? She's like, no, they're really bad. Like, I basically have them on medication and I keep them at the house. Like I told you, I can't take them even to the park. They're crazy. So eventually, as time passes, he convinces her to bring the kids over to his apartment. And he says that they were, quote, like terrorists. Okay. He was like, they were wild animals running around, and that Nick was especially crazy, violent, aggressive, all the stuff I told you earlier, hitting, yelling, screaming, and that he just always wanted it to go his way. They're watching TV. He's controlling what they should watch. They're in public. He's cutting the line and he's like, fuck you, we're first. Like crazy shit. David still loved Diana. So he's like wanting to continue being with her. And he's talking about marriage and stuff. And she's like, listen, if we're going to move forward and we're going to get married, you need to adopt my kids. And he was like, I don't want to do that. And she's like, all right, well, basically ultimatum. Adopt the kids or that's it. On May 25th, 1996, David and Diana get married. He adopts the kids and they're supposed to be a happy family, except as you can imagine, they're not. And according to David, it just kept getting worse with Nick. He's getting in more and more trouble in school. He's still hitting his siblings, his mom. He's now even hitting the grandmother. And then when David tries to like overpower him, like hold him down, try to get him to snap out of it, he like spits in David's face like crazy shit. So they end up putting him in a hospital, like to get a mental evaluation to figure out like what's wrong with this kid. It's then that he gets diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, ADHD, and some other things as well, but basically all behavioral issues. When Nicholas was 12 years old, there was this incident that happened between him and David, and this really was kind of a turning point. Basically, David, Diana, and the kids, they're going to go to Disneyland. And on the way there, they stop. And Diana, the mom, she is going to go into a store. David tells Nick to wait in the car with him and the other kids while she goes to the store. Nick doesn't want to do that. He's like, no, I'm going to the store with my mom. Fuck you, you're not my real dad. I don't know. He didn't say that part. Maybe he did, but that's not what David said. What David said happened is that he then started hitting the mom. Like as the mom is trying to go to the store, he's like hitting her. So David said he lost it. And I want to read you the quote of what David said happened. Okay. It says, one day during a trip to Disney World in Florida, I just lost it. God forgive me. He starts punching her and I lost it. I couldn't take it no more. I mean, I broke his nose. I couldn't stop. All the years built up. So what does Nick do? He runs off, goes into a store, and he's all bloody and messed up. They're like, what's wrong? And he's like, my dad beat me up. So they call the cops and David gets arrested. Well, once he's out on bail and then he has his hearing, he tells the judge with all the documentation of like the problems that Nick is having in school and the reports of him hitting people and him being in the hospital and the diagnosis that he has. Like basically this kid has a track record of doing this, charges get dropped. But the relationship with Nick and the family and stuff, it's worse now because like that happened. They put Nick into this like program for troubled youth. When Nick was at this program, and then it was just before Christmas, and so he was allowed to leave this program to go spend Christmas with his family. Well, that was so bad, and they were having such a hard time with him that just a couple days after New Year's, they ended up sending him to a youth shelter. This is happening in the year 2000, where he's in this youth shelter. Now, keep in mind, in the year 2001, his father, the biological father, remember I told you, Jack Alaverdian, his ex-girlfriend, she took out a restraining order on him because he's already abusive and doing crazy stuff. And he's like got a rap sheet now for fraud and stealing and scamming and all this stuff, right? Apple doesn't fall far. He like comes over, violates the restraining order, goes to the ex-girlfriend's house. She's beats her up essentially. She's running all bloodied to the neighbor asking for help. He grabs her by her hair, drags her in front of the neighbor. They call the cops, of course. Cops come, arrest him. Now back to Nick. Okay, he is now 13 years old. He's at this youth shelter and he's telling people at the shelter that the reason why he's there, ooh, nice voice crack. The reason why he's there is because his parents are alcoholics and they couldn't take care of him. And like, that's how he's there. The thing about it is he's not lying in the sense that it does seem that his parents did have issues with drinking according to other people, but he kind of omits the part where he's at fault. Now, here's where a major thing happens in Nick's story, which is in 2002, he gets put into DCYF, which is the Department of Children, Youth, Families. They put him in this program. This program actually would end up getting shut down. And it is in this program for troubled kids where he claims like some of the most messed up things happened to him. He was abused every way you could imagine, he said.
And I was subjected to torture, beatings, assault in various forms. I was refused to contact anybody at all.
When Nick is 14 and still in this program, though, he manages to get this position at the House of Representatives in Rhode Island, and he is, working with politicians, and he's basically telling everyone, this is what's happening in DCYF. They're abusing the kids. Like, there needs to be some reform in child welfare. The system is broken. I mean, it was to the point where there are I found interviews of him talking to media and politicians about this issue.
Every day you were beaten.
Every day in Florida, every day in Nebraska, every day in Rhode Island.
Every day, Nicholas.
I shoot every day.
The injuries, including bruises and sprains, are recorded in these medical documents. And Aliverdian tells us lawmakers also noticed the wounds.
I chose to fight for the rights of myself as a kid in DCY of care and fight for the rights of those who were actually beating me up.
But behind the scenes, things were not good. Why? Because he would talk to these politicians and ask them for help. He would beg them, please adopt me. Please take me. Sorry, if there's an ambulance, you can hear it. The problem is that Nick, he would go to these representatives and politicians and stuff, and he would tell them, like, please basically help me, save me, get me out of this situation. And there was even one politician, his name is Brian Coogan. He actually felt sorry for Nick and was going to adopt him. But he says that when he went and applied to do the whole process, the judge actually took him aside. And this is a judge who was familiar with Nick and his history and the case and everything, basically told him not to adopt Nick.
And I went in with the judge, and he said to me, he goes, see this file right here? He had a file on Nick. So all the times that he was telling you and the other reps up the state house that he was being abused, cuts and bruises, those were all self-inflicted.
The judge basically pulled Brian aside and said to him, don't adopt him. He will destroy your life. Okay? So this Brian guy, he actually backs out. Because the thing is, they were inklings. They would call Nick brilliant but dangerous. Because what would happen is, he would start with the whole advocacy reform thing, and then he would like ask for money. They would feel bad for him. They'd give him some money, and then he would ask for more money and more money. And then eventually they would get to a point where they would feel like he was using them or manipulating them, and they would say no. And when you say no to Nick, you're going to see this theme. He just lashes out. You can't say no to this guy, all right? Or else he's going to try to destroy you. So when this Brian Coogan was going to adopt him, kind of led him on, made him think he was. They go through all this process and he backs out. That's when Nick turned on him. He says, once you turn your back on that kid, he will torch you. He was so good with computers, he once said, I could destroy your life right from my bedroom. He knew how to manipulate people. The kid swindled a lot of people. He got certain state reps to give him money, and sometimes he threatened them. He knew how to play the you touched me card. He'd say, I'll tell people you R-worded me, you assaulted me. Now he's getting older, though. He's about to like what they call age out. A foster family takes him in as an adult. He's 18 going on 19. They take him in anyway, and they basically are like gonna help him get on his feet and become an adult and go out into the world. They try to get him into colleges. They tried to get him into the Navy. He wanted to go to the Navy, but then he, quote, washed out in less than a month. And they kept trying. Eventually, he gets accepted into a community college in Ohio called Sinclair Community College. Okay. And this is where he commits his first crime as an adult. In 2008, two separate students accused Nick of almost the same exact thing, where what happened was they were students, female students, and he would corner them in a stairwell, and then he would like pin them to the wall with one hand and expose himself and start masturbating with the other. And when they would struggle and stuff, he would yell at them. Like the first time he did it, the girl said he told her, don't be a bitch, I'm almost done. And then he very quickly ejaculated onto the wall and left. And she was stunned. And then she had a class, and she just goes to the class like a zombie, and she's in shock. While she's in the class, she's thinking, oh my God, what just happened? Like, I'm going to go report this. She walks out of class, and guess who's there? Nick, of course. He's there. And you know what he tells her? He's like, I'm so sorry. Don't tell anyone. I couldn't help myself because you're so beautiful. You're so beautiful. It was like I couldn't control myself. And she was like, okay. She still goes to the police. She's like, this and this happened. They file a report. Investigation gets opened. She goes to the hospital. She does a kit, R-word kit. And that case is now under investigation. That same year, the same thing happens with another girl. He does the same thing. Corners her, exposes himself. She's struggling. He's relieving himself on her, not in the urine way. Then the same thing. Oh, I'm so sorry. I can't help it. You're so beautiful. Like as if the flattery is going to make this all okay. Like that would work on him because he's a narcissist. So that first case, okay, that ends up going to trial and stuff, and Nick is found guilty. and he is now a sex offender. He has to register as a sex offender. He's like 19 years old, still a teenager, and he's already a sex offender. And he campaigned against that just a couple years before and was threatening to make other people sex offenders. September of 2008, after those two incidents, he leaves Ohio. Okay, where does he go? He goes to Utah. What does he do? Something even worse. Goes to Utah now. He's trying to get away from all that. And he has a girlfriend. And he ends up R-wording her. What happened? Well, she was actually his ex-girlfriend because she said that he was progressively getting rougher and rougher in bed when they were together. And on top of that, he was like, asked her for this money, which she gave him, and he told her he was going to pay her back. And then when she asked him to pay her back, he refused and started getting rough with her. Like it was all happening at the same time, right? Like kind of almost like intimidating her. And so she breaks up with him. And so he is like kind of obsessively following her and monitoring her. And he comes up with this plan to text her and tell her, I have the money. I'm going to pay you back. Like, meet me in my apartment. I'm going to give you the money back. Well, it was a trap. She gets there and oh my gosh. And then he tells her it's her fault. He's like, you're mentally unstable. Like, this is all your fault. Like, this had to happen because you're crazy. He's like, you're too emotional. So, like, not my problem. So she's trying to run away and he blocks the door. He has his phone on him though. And during this struggle, he gets a text message which distracts him for a second. And in that second he's distracted, she manages to get past him, runs out, and she goes to police and she also files a report. She does the kit and goes to the hospital, all of that, files a report. And so now he, in 1 year, he has 3 cases against him from girls that he SA'd. So now he's like, okay, I gotta leave Utah. Where does he go? He goes back to Rhode Island. It's 2009 now. Nick is talking to this girl online and they end up dating. She ends up breaking up with him because she's like, he has a bad temper, something isn't right. She ends up having to get a restraining order against him because he won't leave her alone. Harassing her, stalking her, calling her, texting her, like one of those. He's like, okay, let me terrorize another woman. Okay, that was at the end of 2009. Well, less than a year later, July 2010, another situation. And there's like a lot. Like you're gonna need to brace yourself. Now, this case is unbelievable. So, July 2010. Same MO. He meets the girl online, they're talking for weeks, and they decide to meet up. She's like into art, and he tells her he's an artist and he has an art studio. So after this date, he asks her, do you want to see my art in my art studio? And she's like, okay. Well, it turns out it's his apartment. She's also getting major red flags because he turns the cable off, like the cable box, which had the time displayed. He turns that off. So now she can't tell what time it is. She's like looking for her phone. She can't find her phone. She's like, did he hide my phone? Like, what's happening? All the alarm bells are ringing. So she is now wanting to leave. Okay. He doesn't want her to. He's like, just sit on my lap. Don't go. Just sit on my lap. He's like, just kiss me. Just kiss me. She's like, she starts to get like physically ill. Like it's dawning on her what's going on. And she tries to leave. As she's trying to get out the door, he blocks her. Okay. Common theme you'll see. As he's blocking her and she's trying to leave, he's saying crazy shit. He's like, I'm going to kill myself. Like, I'm going to take a knife and I'm going to kill myself. Don't leave. Please don't leave. And so she says she just like started screaming and yelling at the top of her lungs, like, give me my phone back. Let me leave. Like she just like went crazy and it shocked him. And so he ends up giving her the phone back. As he was letting her go, he was like, I love you. I'm going to pay for your college degree. I love you so much. I love you, baby. And then he's also like, I'm going to kill myself. After she files that report, police go to him and he tells them, he's like, I have depression. I'm sorry. They end up taking him for a medical evaluation. You think it's over? Oh, honey, it didn't even begin. So this is the next thing that happened. 3 months after this incident that I just told you about, Nick gets married. He finds someone that's willing to marry him. November 5th, 2010 is when he got married to his first wife. A week after their wedding, the cops were called because he was violent with her and it was so loud like people could hear. So this is what happened. So they're at the apartment and before the cops were called, they had friends over. Their friends have a child. The child was crying. That's what children do sometimes. And so when the friends and the kid left, he's somehow blaming his wife for the kid crying. He's yelling at her. The cops are called because of this commotion. When the cops show up, before they even knock on the door of their apartment, they can hear screaming and crying. They knock on the door, and his wife answers the door. She has red marks on her face, her eyes already starting to swell. She has like grip marks on her neck, around her wrist, grip marks. While she is like answering the door and the police are asking questions, Nick is right there and he's like, please, 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 let's talk this through. I'm sorry, let's talk it out. Let's talk it out. Let's talk it out. Okay. He knows what's going to happen. Okay. After all this, they're like, we're going to arrest you. They're like, sir, you're under arrest. He's like, no, no. He's like refusing to have the cuffs put on him. He's like, I can't go back to jail. I didn't do anything wrong. And they end up having to carry him out of his apartment, put him in the back of the cop car. In the back of the cop car, he loses it. Screaming, yelling, banging his head on the bars, that separate the person. Oh, that scared me like so much. Who's ringing my doorbell? I hate that. He's banging his head against the bars that separate the cop from the person getting arrested. And it got so bad they had to basically pepper spray him to get him to stop. In this case, Nick ended up pleading no contest to domestic assault, and he only got probation. Okay, so he sticks around in Rhode Island because I have just a restraining order and probation. That's nothing. In Utah and in Ohio, he's got like serious charges. So he's like, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Right. And so he does. Just 2 months after this incident. Okay. Another one. 2 days after Christmas, a woman walks into a police station and she wants to file a report against Nicholas Alaverdian. She says, okay, same story, different day. We met online. We were talking for weeks, seemed good, decided to meet for a date. And it went all the way left. She says basically after the date, they went back to his apartment. He was asking her repeatedly and also attempting to sleep with her. And she was like saying, no, no, no. And it got to the point where she's like, okay, I'm going to leave now. And he doesn't like that. We know this. So again, he tries to block her from leaving at the door. Once she saw that he was trying to block her from leaving and was like basically in a rage, she called 911. He saw that and he grabbed the phone from her and wouldn't give it back. He's now screaming, you want your phone back? Give me my money back. I want the $200 I spent on the dinner. I want the money back. I want the money back, right? So she's like, fine, I'll give you the money. So now he's got her like in the car with him and he's still has her phone. When she gets the money for the date, he's going to give her the phone back. Okay. So he drives her to like this ATM late at night. She pulls out $200. He's standing over her. She feels like she has no choice but to do this. He drives her then back to the apartment. And before he gives her a phone and lets her go, he makes her sign this like document that he wrote while he's filming her. And the document is insane. The document says that she is not going to pursue legal action against him, that she is giving him this $200 for therapy because she's a violent sex addict, that he is treating her for that. And so he's filming her, she's signing it. She's like, oh my God, I just need to get out of here. And then once that's all done, he lets her go. She immediately goes to the police station. She's afraid. She doesn't think she can actually file charges on him because of that document. So she's like, I don't want to press charges, but I want to file a police report. Like, this is what happened. So that happened like 2 days after Christmas, 2010. Now it's February 2011, just a few months later, and major things happen here. Remember that first case in 2008 in college when he cornered that girl in the stairwell and all of that? Okay, you know how he was found guilty and he had to register as a sex offender? Well, he actually asked for a new trial based on, quote, newly discovered evidence, which was a MySpace post that he submitted to the court. And in this post, it was the victim basically saying, I lied, I cheated on my boyfriend with Nick. I didn't want to be exposed for that. So I lied and said that he forced himself on me, but like it was all a lie. Well, The prosecution, they end up taking this evidence and they get this forensic computer person from the FBI to go over it and testify. And they're basically like, it's fake. They're like, first of all, it's been copy and pasted. You can see that. And second of all, the date and day of the week that's on this post, it's not correct. Like, it's incongruent. Like, let's randomly, like, let's say January 1st, 2011 was not a Tuesday. And they were like, a computer would not make this mistake. That stuff is pre-programmed. A human who is typing this up would. So in addition to the fact that we can tell that he faked it, like, there's also this mistake. So they're like, all right, you're not getting a new trial. Like, no. But what also happened in 2011 is that Nick ends up suing DCYF.
Confiscate. Yes, I can. No, you can't. Watch. 3 weeks after recording this confrontation with a courthouse sheriff's deputy, Nicholas Alaverdian returned to court for a restraining order tied to his battle with the DCYF. Oh, on Monday, he claims a misunderstanding over what was recorded provoked a deputy.
He pinned me against the wall. He pushed me. He shoved me.
Can't confiscate.
He punched me at one point.
Now he's behind 3 bills that are endorsed by several lawmakers. One would overhaul DCYF.
Most of the social workers that I know mean well, but they are not given the resources. They are not given the time. They don't have the abilities to do what they need to do to get their job done.
He doesn't just sue them, though. He sues the state of Nebraska and the state of Ohio. He sues like the courthouse, the judge, like a bunch of politicians. Like, I think it was like almost 20 people he sued. Sorry, did I say state of Ohio? State of Florida and state of Nebraska. He sued them. Also, he sued the governor of Rhode Island. And who else did he sue? A judge. Like I said, almost 20 people he sued. Also, he created this group. It's called Nexus Government, and it's basically like this group to lobby politicians for child welfare. And through this group, he is still going to politicians in the area and he's like telling them about what happened to him, suing them for what they did to me, and he's still keeping that going. They don't know that he's being accused of all these things. They don't know. They think he's just this kid who grew up in the system and the system screwed him over and now he's trying to get justice, right? 2 months after he sues DCYF, another woman walks into a police station and wants to file a report against Nicholas Alaverdian. Remember his wife, the one who he attacked a week after their wedding and all of that? Okay, well, she got a restraining order against him. Well, he had violated the order. She had proof that he violated the order, and so an arrest warrant was issued for him. He gets arrested. He does whatever time he has to do. It's not like a crazy amount of time, and he gets out. Now, when he gets out, okay, it is now 2013. This is when Nicholas files another lawsuit, right? He has already sued DCYF. You know who he sues now? Sinclair Community College in Ohio. That's the college where he had 2 incidents, where there was a case against him. Not just the school in Ohio, but also the court that didn't give him a new trial. Like all the employees in the court, the judge, everyone there being like, you guys are making false allegations and destroying my life and, I'm suing you. He even sues the victim.
There's no part of my life that he hasn't ruined.
Mary says he launched a smear campaign and unsuccessfully tried to sue her twice.
I spent the last 15 years being a shell of a person. I isolated myself from almost all of my friends after the attack. I felt marked. I still feel marked.
And he actually says that this is his 9/11. Okay, I want to read you the quote of an essay that he wrote about this titled My 9/11. It says, quote, "Her acts about the victim are tantamount to flying planes into my twin pillars of personal success and public service." Wow. Wow. This lawsuit against the college and stuff, it got dismissed, all right? But the one against DCYF was settled for a lot of money. He got $100,000 cash Also, like roughly, also he got this $200,000 lien, like, what do you call it? Removed. He had a lien for medical bills that were incurred during foster care, which in itself sounds insane.
A former orphan who was in DCYF custody receives a medical bill for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Hospital stays, they are.
Alaverdian was shocked when he received a 6-page medical bill and this letter asking for just under $207,000 for medical assistance. He tells us the bill covers an 11-year period, starting when he was placed in DCYF custody in 2002. He alleges he was physically and sexually assaulted while he was moved in and out of some 20 group homes in 3 states.
Take your worst nightmare, multiply it by 5,000. There were rapes, there were beatings.
But he has no plans to pay the $206,918.39 bill.
And it's incredibly, incredibly despicable.
So $200,000 lien is now paid off, removed, not there. And on top of that, he has $100,000 roughly cash, right? He settles the lawsuit with them. In return, he's like saying they're not liable, they didn't do anything, they're fine. And he says something to the effect of like they're not liable, but you know, they can improve a little bit. But basically he's like took the money and run. Now though, remember when he was mad about that $200 date? He like forced her to go to the ATM to give him the money back. He's not doing that anymore. Oh no, he's taking girls on dates and he's paying over $800 at the fanciest place. He's spending the money. He's doing it all to impress people. He's like living lavish. He is blowing through this money and he's using it to impress girls and get girls. But at the same time, right, when they're like, oh, okay, you know, thanks, but I don't think this is going to work out. He's like, yes, it is. It is going to work out. You're not going to leave me. And he's like, harasses them for weeks and all the same shit, right? He just has more money now. All right, now it is 2 years after this settlement, and Nick gets married for a second time. He's going to actually get violent with his wife the day after their wedding, not a week after. He's more efficient now. And then also, she's going to leave him after 7 months, and it's going to be like an insane situation, okay? He broke this woman beyond belief. This is all in Ohio because remember that foster family that took him in as an adult and helped get him into that college in Ohio? Okay, they're from Ohio. They actually buy a home for him. They help him get a home in Ohio. Oh, also, by the way, he's Mormon now because he was raised Roman Catholic when he was in Rhode Island, but now he is saying he's Mormon. He basically joins this Mormon church in the area, and then he does the singles ward, which is like a singles event they do in the church for Mormons to meet each other and maybe get married. And that's where he finds his second wife. The day after they got married is when he hit her for the first time. Immediately after he did that, he starts to threaten to kill himself and is like inconsolable to where she just got hit, yet she's now comforting him. Now that's manipulation. And this is where her nightmare began because he mind fucked her. Like it started slow. It was like, I don't want you to go to work. I'm going to do the traditional thing and you stay at home and I'll work and you know, be a good Mormon wife. And so she's like, oh, okay. And then he's like, you know, you should dress more conservative. You should dress like this. And then it was like, I don't like these friends, or like, I don't like your sister. I don't like these people. So now she's like isolated from friends and family. He's controlling what she wears. She doesn't go to work. She's at home all the time. Now he's like putting a tracker on the car, making sure he has her location. She can't really leave and do anything without his permission. And so her entire world is controlled. It got so bad that she started drinking. When he was gone at work, she would just drink because she felt so depressed and miserable. Well, he used that against her because what he would do is he would secretly record her with his phone, where he would have these conversations where he would like rile her up after he came home and she was drinking, and she would have these like outbursts and say things that, weren't that great. And then he would take that recording and edit out anything he did and make her look really, really bad. And he would send it to her parents and be like, your daughter has a problem. Like, I'm trying to help her, we're praying for her, but like she's a drunk. And so then when she goes, not knowing that this is happening, right? When she goes to like confide in her family about things, they're like, we don't believe you. Like, we heard the recording, and like basically they don't believe her. So now she feels she doesn't have anyone to turn to. He's got everyone turned around against her. Like, she feels trapped. She feels trapped. It all comes to a head on November 2nd, 2015. Okay, when she was smoking this e-cigarette. Now, Nick doesn't like e-cigarettes, so he's mad at her. He's yelling, screaming. Essentially, he would do this thing that he did before, where if he's mad at her, he drags her up to the bathroom upstairs and locks her in the bathroom. She said the longest she had been locked there was 2 days. All right, so she's locked in the bathroom. And the thing is, when she got out of there, she had had enough, and the cops were called and they came, and she told them, like, this is what happened. Nick gets arrested. The thing is, she didn't leave him then. She didn't leave him then. She stayed with him. She felt like she really had nowhere to go, nothing to do. He made her feel like this was her fault. She messed up. She got him in trouble. So now she's feeling guilty that he's in jail. And so she's going to like stick by him or whatever. And it's a whole mental thing. In any case, she does finally have enough one day. It's like she like woke up, like she snapped out of it. She says she just woke up one day. She hadn't even planned for it very well, because she just woke up, got in the car, and started driving. He has her tracking, right? He's got the GPS and everything. So he notices that she had left the home without asking him. And so he leaves work and actually starts chasing her. So now there's like a car chase happening. She said it was so bad she actually got into a head-on collision, to an accident. As soon as the accident happened, Nick leaves, right? She said no one got hurt, and she waited for her parents to come. And it was then that she was like done with him, right? So she ends up divorcing him. She gets a restraining order out on him. Why? Because once she divorced him, he was calling her and calling her parents and everyone and just like harassing everyone. So she got a restraining order out on him. So this is, I lost count now how many people leave him and had to end up getting a restraining order. Another thing I think is super interesting is that when she talks about him and the level of manipulative, elaborate things he did, I think this is really interesting when you look at what he's doing now with this whole Arthur Knight, milady, whatever the hell he's doing, Winston Churchill, victory. Like, I don't know what the fuck he's doing. She says that when she was trying to have him served with the divorce, that he actually, it was so difficult because he would wear disguises. I'll read you the quote. She says they tried to serve him the divorce papers and the protection order papers, but he'd be walking around town with disguises on, hats and wigs and stuff.
There was one picture I saw. He's in red silky pajamas. Those were the same pajamas he wore when I was with him.
When the restraining order finally was in place, he was so vindictive and upset about it that he tried to flip the script. She says as soon as he finally heard about the protection order against him, he created one against me filled with lies. He accused me of putting out lit cigarettes on him, but he did it to himself. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's punching himself, cutting himself in the hopes of getting pity points because he's done it before. What she's referring to is later on, there's like an incident where he showed up to court with like a black eye and said like the prison guards did it to him, and they're like, we didn't. Now, I don't know. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But like, this is just a little food for thought. Food for thought. Right. Now remember, that was all in Ohio. So he leaves Ohio. Where does he go? Back to Rhode Island. This time he moves in with a friend. This friend also got a restraining order out on Nick. Okay. Even his friends are like, dude, go away. He made the horrible mistake of being nice to this guy and letting him like crash on his couch until he got on his feet. But what did Nick do? He actually stole from him. He took one of his checks and cashed it and lied about it. And when the guy confronted him and told him to leave, he was like, no, I'm not leaving. So he's a scammer, squatter. Blech. Anywho, so this guy goes to the court and he's like, listen, this guy stole from me. He won't leave. And he's like harassing me. I want a restraining order out on him. So now I lost count, but another restraining order. Now it's 2018 to 2019. We're coming to a head here. This is where the shit hits the fan for Nick. They have new technology now. They have databases and stuff. And a sample that was taken in a case in Ohio hit Nicholas Alaverdian's DNA, hit in the Utah case. So now they've confirmed through DNA that he is responsible for these R words. Okay. So the investigation that went cold and they couldn't verify it and he skipped town and all this stuff. Okay, now it's like in the forefront and it's knocking down the door. Making matters worse, the FBI is investigating him now for fraud. Because what did he do? Remember that nice foster family that let him in as an adult? They should have just let him rot. It's like this is the nightmare story that ruins it for the innocent people that need help. Anywho, he robs them blind. He takes his foster father's identity. He steals it. He opens 22 credit cards, $200,000 debt. When the family found out, they're like, oh my God, how are we going to get out of this? Right? That's how the FBI got involved. They end up contacting Nick and saying, hey, like, this is the FBI. We're investigating you for fraud regarding this and this and this. He's like, oh shit, I got to leave America. So he starts plotting, planning, scheming. What does he do? He goes online, looks for women, but not in America. He starts going on these like dating websites with women in the UK. He starts talking to this woman in the UK for weeks. They hit it off. And he's like, I'm going to fly to meet you. And she's like, how romantic. He's like, oh, but wait, can I stay with you instead of a hotel? She said he was relentless and she felt bad for him. And he was like making the effort and buying the ticket to come to her. Like she ends up letting him stay with her in her home, and it was like the worst thing she could have done. She said, quote, every single boundary that I set, he broke. Before I knew it, he had moved in. Within days, he was talking about getting married and doing calculations about how long it would take him to get his residency. Excuse me, in a space of 5 or 6 days, I was completely broken down. She said he ended up pressuring her, harassing her, begging her nonstop to get him an iPhone, an Apple Watch, and like basically in a couple months she had spent like over $4,000 on this guy. So she was done. She reached her breaking point. She was trying to like leave the room they were in this one day after ignoring him, and he basically got violent with her. She said he pinned her down, he R-worded her, and she went to the police. The police helped her get him out of there, and they were like, change your locks. But when they asked her, do you want to press charges? She said no, because she was afraid of the way he would retaliate. He was always threatening her like that he would do these things, sue her, what crazy shit. So then after that, right, she didn't press charges, but he's kicked out. He's now harassing her, calling, texting nonstop. He's telling her, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten in days. I have nowhere to go. I can't sleep anywhere. Like, please, please help me. Then all of a sudden though, he just stops talking to her. She's like, I think I got rid of him. That's where that dies, except it's going to come back. But let's stick with the timeline. Nick is in the UK. He now needs to find another woman, right? So he's probably going to go back online, find someone. He meets a woman. Her name is Miranda, also from the UK.
The man calling himself Arthur Knight married his wife using the name Nicholas Brown 2.5 years ago. Miranda has stood by him throughout the police pursuit.
She is the one that is now in all of these interviews with him. She's sticking by his side.
What do you say to someone who believes that you are Nicholas Alaverdian?
I am not Andrea. I am not Nicholas Alaverdi, and I do not know how to make this clearer.
What do you say to people who say these are crocodile tears? He's putting on a show. This is all an act.
Oh,
Andrea,
no,
that's a low blow. That's a right low blow.
When you actually read about what he's done, he seems to have done it consistently through his life. So why is it literally going to stop when he meets me?
I don't know if she's a scammer like him too, and he found someone like his equal and they're scamming together, or if he's changed his ways. I don't know. But in any case, or maybe something bad's happening and she's going along with it. I'm not sure. I hope that's not the case. Now, also what's happening at this time is COVID, right? 2019, 2020. He starts contacting the media that he had relations with when he was doing all that stuff against DCYF when he was younger. And he tells them that he has been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and it's like terminal. And the reporters are saying that like when he contacted them, he really insisted on them mentioning that he has this illness, right? Then a month later, all of a sudden in February 2020, he dies.
Sad news to pass along. A voice you've heard on the air here on WPRO. Nicholas Aliverdian, he's passed away from a long battle with cancer, leaving his wife and 2 children. Nicholas Aliverdian was 32.
How do we know this? Because an anonymous woman who would not reveal her identity, presumably his wife, she claimed to be his widow, was talking to media. And the reason why she wanted to remain anonymous is because she said these government organizations like DCYF and all these people, they're out to get him. Okay. That's why he's in the UK. He's in hiding. That's why he was there. Right. But then he got sick and now he's dead. And so that, if there's criminal cases, I guess they would all go away now because he's dead, right? Though there's an obituary that comes out too, and I need to read the obituary to you. Not all of it, it's a lot. I'm going to show you all of it if you want to go down that rabbit hole. But I need to read some of these clips because that narcissism is insane and wow. So at the top of this obituary, like when you go on it now, there's like a thing on top that's like, this is not real or fake or whatever. It's like a warning. Now everyone says he wrote this obituary himself
Nick's not dead. Nick wrote his own obituary.
because he's alive and he faked his death. Allegedly. My conspiracy theory, don't sue me. This is what he said. He goes, Nicholas Aliverdian's battle for life ended on February 29th, 2020. The children and families in the care of Rhode Island Department of Children, Youth, and Families, DCYF, for whom he inspired and led through turbulent government transgressions, have lost a warrior that fought on the front lines for 2 decades. His last words were, "Fear not and run toward the bliss of the sun." At the time of his passing, the room was filled with the sounds of the end credits for the 1997 film Contact by composer Alan Silvestri, a film and score which held special meaning for Mr. Aliverdian. Mr. Aliverdian was a painter, author, amateur ornithologist, political scientist, sociologist, accomplished orator, and child welfare reform advocate. Aliverdian left his employment to become the youngest lobbyist in Rhode Island history as he fought for the DCYF reform and was then exiled to Nebraska and Florida, where he was silenced until his 18th birthday. Grandiose, like exiled, and he's Napoleon. He again did the unthinkable and was admitted to become an alum of Harvard University. So he never went to Harvard officially. I think he did like one of those like programs on the outside. Immediately, right, the FBI and the police in Rhode Island were suspicious of his death. They're like, oh, really? 2019, he got a call from the FBI about the investigation. And then all of a sudden, after he hatched his plan, months later, he's like, I have cancer. And then 2 months after that, I'm dead. Here's my glowing obituary that I wrote for myself, allegedly. The crazy shit is that after he faked his death, like around that same time, he actually scammed this woman out of $40,000. Okay. It was this Canadian TV host. Her name is Nafsika Antipas. She was working on the show. She needed someone to do marketing and promotion. She found Nicholas Aliverdian. He was supposedly a Harvard graduate and all this. The crazy thing is she was scammed before, she said. She feels like he took advantage of that, knowing that she was scammed before, because when she would get suspicious, he'd be like, you're just being paranoid because you were scammed before. Like, I'm not scamming you. And she'd be like, I guess you're right. Anyway, she ended up paying him $10,000 a month to work on this project. But then as time went by, she was paying him, but he wasn't actually giving her any work, and he had all these excuses. So I want to read you her quotes. She says 1 month it was because he was in the hospital. The second month was his dog was in the hospital. The third month he was going on a second honeymoon with his wife. She said he used this stuttering accent. It was British, but he said it was Irish. I think he was trying to make it Irish. He was calling me all the time. I was like, okay, just do your work, whatever. He tried to be flirtatious, and I was not interested in the slightest, but I was just trying to be nice. He'd say, oh, my wife will get jealous that we are talking so much. I was always uncomfortable with him the whole time.
In particular, a newspaper report from a Canadian businesswoman who claimed
Yes,
of
a
a
Canadian
scam of
I worked with that Canadian businesswoman, and I would love to show you how I worked for her day and night. irrespective of time zone, and even enlisted my wife to help me work with her.
Well, she says after 4 months of this crap and no work and all this money, she's like, all right, I'm done. She like cut his access to the emails. She was done working with him. She told everyone that she knew in the industry that she was working with that like he doesn't work for her anymore. And she said, quote, it got very, very ugly. She said it became hostile. She said it became very hostile. He started calling my parents and said he was going to take my father's company to court. The calls were incessant, coming from 4 different numbers, as if he was using some form of auto call device, and that he gave her an ultimatum. He said, if I don't hear from you by 10 Eastern, I will be posting a lengthy account of my experience on ripoffreport.com, where they never remove posts and reviews about companies. You have 1 hour and 17 minutes before settlement negotiations are off. She said he used my driver's license photo and made it look like a mugshot, posting it online with the words fraud alert underneath. He created other online accounts to spread rumors about me. He tried to defame me. She said she got scared. She's like, I thought, who knows if he could come to my house? I don't want this guy around. And then he sent her a letter from a lawyer demanding to be paid $110,556. She said that in response, she had her lawyer, quote, send a letter back in reply demanding he pay her back the $40,000 he had received, and that she never heard back from him after that. In September of 2020, that is when authorities in the United States determined for a fact that he faked his death. He's got like over 15 aliases, like 3 different British, Irish accents. I don't know what he's doing there. Scottish, some weird Harry Potter type shit.
16 aliases? No, typos.
Now it's 2021. Nick knows that the police know that he faked his death. So he and his wife moved to Scotland. He basically creates this identity. The funny thing is he went to this pub like all the time. And they said that when he would get drunk at this pub, the accent, the British accent, because he told him, I'm Arthur Knight. He said he was an Irish orphan, milady, but that he was raised in the UK. And he was a fine gentleman. He was a professor at the nearby university. Then when he would get drunk, his Rhode Island accent would come out. And so he's at this pub in Scotland. Okay, they're going to call him out on this shit. They're like, what the fuck happened to your accent? He would say, oh, I worked for many years in the United States, and at times the accent, it comes and goes. And so they were like, okay, I guess. Now that everything unfolded, they're like, yeah, that. October 2021, he gets arrested. Okay, why? How? What happened? He got COVID. He had to be hospitalized. Remember, he is now officially determined to have faked his death, and there's a international, like Interpol, international police. There's like a warrant out for his arrest. So everyone's been alerted. He gets to the hospital, and he's got these tattoos that are similar to the tattoos that have been identified as him, right? So the nurses realize that, they call the cops come, they verify with fingerprints and the tattoos and everything that this is Nicholas Alaverdian, and they arrest him. So he's under arrest, but he's still at the hospital. Well, the day after his arrest, he tries to escape. He tries to book a private ambulance, and he tries to secure oxygen or procure oxygen. They find out about him doing that and they stop it. Eventually, when he gets good enough to get out of the hospital, they have this hearing, post bail, and he's now back at his apartment or flat in Scotland, and he's doing interviews.
We were once a normal family, but thanks to the media, our lives have been interrupted. And we'd like privacy, and I would like to go back to being a normal husband.
This is where the media circus began. Oh, the voice crack. It was a good one. Proud of it. He is saying he can't walk. He can barely talk because he has this oxygen mask.
Because I can't breathe, I can't walk. People say that's an act. Let me try to stand up. Let me try to stand up. Exactly. Exactly. This is a vicious lie. How can I be a flight risk if I can't even stand? The truth needs to be known. I nearly died. I nearly died.
He's very feeble. He's giving feeble energy.
How can I be a flight risk if I can't even stand?
So you've never been to the United States?
Never in my life.
He's like, I'm Arthur Knight. I am Arthur Knight.
Wearing an oxygen mask and speaking with an accent.
I am Arthur Knight.
At the time, the tattoo thing was like a big part of how he was identified. The interviewers are like, well, show us your arms, show us your tattoos. But he only lifts up to his forearms. They're like, yeah, no, your tattoos are on your biceps. Show us your biceps. He's like, I can't. The oxygen mask.
Will you show me your arm?
That would require undoing my oxygen mask.
Knight would not roll up his sleeves for a BBC crew.
I'm just exhausted.
Is it worth seeing your left forearm?
I just showed you a photo of it.
Yeah, but could you just raise it?
Honestly, I'm exhausted and
also just looking at the oxygen, we're getting a little bit low as well.
Rossi later claimed he had woken from a coma to find his arms had been tattooed. Claimed he had gone into hospital without any markings and had been tattooed while in a coma for 18 days.
This is where I'm like, this shit is funny. Where they basically, he does this interview. They end up getting Brian Coogan to FaceTime. And he's like, I don't want to go on a video call.
How you doing, Nick?
I'm not doing a FaceTime call with someone I don't know.
Look at his two biceps. He has a barcode on one and a bird feather on the other, wing. Is he willing to show you his arms?
We're not going.
Are you? Would you? Is that something you would do? Would you show us your arms?
I've shown you.
Your biceps.
Yeah, I will show. Okay, I am not getting into this conversation.
And he's like, he's got a scar near his eyebrow. Like, let him show you his bicep. Like, he's doing that. And then the reporter's like, yeah, there's a scar.
You have a scar in the same place. Can you explain that?
No, I can't.
Could you take your glasses off? Would you mind? And are you able to take off your mask? Do you see a similarity?
Do you?
The eyebrows are the same.
I'm sorry. I don't know what I could do about my eyebrows.
Still denying it, like, till the end. But then, right, he's out on bail. I don't know what his wife does for a living. I don't know where he gets money. But then all of a sudden, he's happy to show his biceps. But they're like, there's scarring on there, like tattoo removal scarring, because he was out on bail and was going through this whole media circus for a while. Why? Remember the story I told you about the woman in UK that he like went and moved in with her and she got him an iPhone and all this and he did all that crazy shit? Well, remember, she didn't press charges at the time because she was afraid. Well, now that this whole circus is happening, she comes forward and she presses charges. So the UK are like, wait a minute, we don't want you to extradite him to the US because we're investigating him for a case. So let's delay that so that we can do our investigation. He's also delaying everything by being like, I can't breathe, my eye, my arms, I have COVID again. It was enough time for him if you want to get tattoo removal sessions done over a course of time. When he got arrested in 2021, he didn't come back to the States till 2024. In addition to like his entire family saying it's him.
You're sure that's him? Well, that's my son. There he is, right there. I know my son. I just know my son. That's definitely Nicky.
They also proved with DNA, although he tried to deny. And then when they tried to get more DNA, he like went crazy on them and wasn't disabled anymore. They said he jumped up, attacked the medical staff like a raging bull when they tried to get more DNA from him because he's like, something's dodgy, you know, with the DNA, milady.
No, milady, it's 22nd of November, 1986. Objection, my lady. That is complete hearsay, and I would ask your ladyship that the prosecution show.
He's not going to ever freaking like stop fighting. Okay, he's not. We get to the point where he is now having this hearing in Scotland and he makes some crazy accusations. Okay, he's like, I'm being tortured. The prison staff are not giving me my oxygen that I don't need. He said that he's being bullied in prison. The prisoners are singing, leaving on a jet plane when they see him.
Told a Scottish judge on Thursday that he's being bullied and taunted
by fellow prisoners in Scotland and singing him the John Denver hit, Leaving on a Jet Plane.
He's like, basically, without my oxygen, I'm hallucinating. I'm seeing things I've never seen before. They're killing me. I'm dying. Like, help. Doctor comes and he's like, listen, he breathes just fine. We checked his lungs. His lungs are fine. He has no problem walking. He fakes seizures a lot, but he's fine.
I conclude that he is as dishonest and deceitful as he is evasive and manipulative.
He's now Jewish also, by the way. He showed up with a yarmulke and a robe, and he said he converted to Judaism in prison. I don't know why, but that was a thing. And then he was like Winston Churchill, and then he became like a Jewish rabbi. And then and this is where it gets really freaking crazy. Okay, dude, I almost forgot this part. Oh my God. This is where I'm like, I'm going to have to make another video about this because it's too much. Okay. In 2008, when he did that rape in Utah, the prosecutor was a guy called David Levitt.
We had to persuade people at every level, at every step along the way, that Nicholas Rossi was, in fact, the person sitting in Scotland claiming to be Arthur Knight.
Now, this guy, David Levitt, this prosecutor, has so many scandals. It's a whole other can of worms. Crazy shit.
He's accused of dismissing criminal charges against his friend and campaign donor.
Is it true that he donated to your campaign?
It is. It is.
Is it true that the defendant served a mission with your brother?
He did. I was not in a position to prosecute it. Who was into Native American stuff? He'd kill deer and get deer hearts and drink their blood and drink the deer's blood.
At the time, Levitt was under investigation by Homeland Security. These clips are now evidence in that case.
There was no organized ring of abuse. It was debunked.
During that same press conference, Levitt described his accuser as tragically mentally ill.
To attack their mental health status as a way to discredit them, and it was clear that that's what he was doing, and that's just not okay.
Homeland Security investigated David Levitt for trafficking and like ritualistic child abuse allegations, dude. And then there's this weird video of him talking about like adopting a Native American baby while like training for buffalo.
The first reason why I'm here is this, that we want to adopt one of your people. If we can form a bilateral agreement between the people of the Northern Cheyenne and the people of Ukraine to introduce buffalo to Western Ukraine. There's such a prejudice in the Native community about a non-Native adopting a Native.
According to court documents, the child's biological mother willingly gave up her parental rights, but the biological father did not. The court ultimately ruled in Levitt's favor, approving the adoption.
This is not how you adopt a child. This is how you procure a child.
Noel Engels is a former analyst with Homeland Security. He confirmed his team had been investigating sexual allegations against Levitt for several years. Then, in 2020, Homeland Security received the video and started investigating for human trafficking. 5 months after receiving the video, documents show Noel and his team were removed from the case. He has since filed a whistleblower complaint. David Levitt is the same county attorney who named himself as the subject of a ritualistic child sex abuse investigation.
My wife and I were part of those allegations, alleging that we were guilty of cannibalizing young children and murdering young children.
This is not a politically motivated investigation. Levitt is using his authority and his pulpit to bully, distract, and mischaracterize the facts of an ongoing investigation.
He took aim at Levitt's claim that the victim who named him years ago is mentally ill.
How dare you?
And he was up for re-election.
We reached out to David Levitt for an explanation last week. His spokesperson said he would be happy to tell the entire story, but not until after tomorrow's election.
But he's basically trying to defame the prosecutor in that case in hopes that it would somehow discredit that the charges against him.
He is going to be needing a very large team on the pitch to try to say that I am a rapist. My wife can't even walk down the pavement to get to point him out.
But then as if that whole shit isn't weird enough. Okay, that's a whole thing. Okay. Then turns out when he was like in Scotland and he was going to court and stuff, that prosecutor, David Levitt, was also in Scotland, not that far away, in a castle that he bought
A new bizarre wrinkle in the Nicholas Aliverdian saga.
Utah prosecutor who filed the original sexual assault charge against Aliverdian has bought a castle in Scotland.
A whole other rabbit hole. If you want me to do a video on it, let me know, because I will. I want to. I might just do it anyway. Moving on from the David Levitt thing, okay? Back to Nicholas, whatever the fuck his name is. January 2024, he was extradited to the United States. Now there were all these delays in the states because he's got several charges in several states and he wants to represent himself.
And is that still what you want to do? It's not ideal, but it is what is necessary. It's not what's necessary. All you need to do is ask for a lawyer today, and I can appoint one to represent you.
And that caused delays as well. But now it's gotten to the point he does have an attorney. And the last thing that happened was the attorney was like, we're going to agree that he is Nicholas Aliverdian.
For the first time, his lawyer has stipulated that he is Nicholas Rossi.
Defense stipulates to identity.
Defense is stipulating to identity in this case?
Yes, for the purposes of preliminary hearing, for the purposes of this case, defense stipulates to identity.
Well, that's what a plot twist sounds like in a courtroom.
The latest that I have is that he's going to have a bail hearing on October 16th of this year, so like next month. I don't know what's going to happen there, if he's going to walk, if he's going to be on oxygen, if he's going to cry. I don't know what's going to happen. What do you think? Do you think he's Arthur Knight? Or do you think he is Nicholas Aliverdian? Do you think he did all those things? Or is he just being blamed over and over and over again? Now, I'll tell you what I think. You didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you. I think that he definitely had a shitty childhood and probably like not the best parents. And also just inherent behavioral issues that he could have just been born with and maybe got worse because of his environment. And then I think, you know, the acting out and everything, when he got in trouble, wherever they sent him, it didn't help. I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't lying about bad things happening to him there. Like we hear all the time about these like troubled children programs and like they do really horrible shit. So that part, I feel like I feel bad. You know, he didn't really have a fair chance, I feel like. At the same time, when you see that he got this foster family and they try to help him and get him in college and a home and all this stuff, and he's in school now and everything, and he's doing this, the things that he accused people of doing, he's doing them. Because I mean, all these women are lying. All of them in different states who don't even know each other, never heard of each other. Same MO. Same exact stuff. Come on. Then you look at all the theatrics and stuff that he does. It's like, dude, come on. Me personally, I think he's guilty. I also feel bad for his childhood, but I don't think that excuses what he did as an adult. That's my take on it. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.